Bergen-Fischer Media.
Hey, it's Monday, here we go. It's the Call Me Tony Show.
It is that time again, Monday morning. What a time to be awake. What a time to be alive. I never thought I'd be a Monday morning person. My whole life, I kind of dreaded Mondays. The alarm clock would go off, and my first impulse was to want to put my fist straight through the stupid thing. Which I don't know if that was because of Monday morning or if that was because of me staying up too late on Sunday night, maybe hitting the weekend a little bit harder than I should have. But either way, Monday mornings weren't really the happiest time for me. These days, it's a little different. It's, as I'm recording this now, it's just before 8 a.m. I've been awake since 5 o'clock, which is weird because, I didn't actually have anywhere to be or anything to do first thing this morning, short of sitting down with you guys and sharing whatever's going on in my head. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm not hitting Monday morning as comfortably as I thought I was because I find that I'm already rambling, which tells me that maybe my brain isn't fully awake yet. Either way, I've got thoughts, and in anticipation of the risk of my brain not firing on all cylinders, I actually made some bullet point notes so that I don't ramble indefinitely and I can kind of actually get to something. So I think that's enough preamble. Let's get into it. As a lot of you know, a few months ago, I broke up with a partner who I've been with for a few years, and the circumstances surrounding that weren't exactly ideal. I would have been happy to keep on working on the relationship, but she had different ideas. I guess her self-indulgent behavior, her dishonesty, her aversion to therapy, just wanting to double down on her mental health issues rather than fixing them. These all seemed like things that were more important than the forward momentum of our relationship. I did extend a good deal of forgiveness despite the fact that, I'd been lied to, I'd been lied about, I'd been physically and emotionally abused. Basically be just treated like garbage. But, as anybody who's been through it understands, letting go of somebody just because they treat you like shit isn't always the easiest thing. At least not at the beginning. And I think as a result, the breakup didn't want to take immediately. If she would contact me expressing that she wanted a little bit of physical closeness, you know what I mean? Of course, I was super, super interested because I wanted to hang on to whatever parts I could, but there was a high price to pay for hanging on to those little bits. And I made a very difficult decision after the final go round with her treating me like garbage and then filing a false police report about me that, my safety, my well-being, my just general sense of okay, I can't keep on risking this just because I want to be close to this person. In fact, after taking careful stock, I realized that the person I was trying to be close to wasn't the person that actually was showing up to the situation. I don't know if that person ever did. Maybe I was just, maybe I was seeing things that weren't there. I don't know. I've often said that I do believe that people can change. I'm typically framing that in a positive way, but I suppose it can be true in the opposite direction as well. If we let our own demons run free for long enough, I suppose it can get to the point where they start to take over and the good parts about us, they start to take a back seat. But, all of that to say this, I did care for her very, very deeply, and I wasn't super happy about the very necessary and very healthy parting of ways. And, I did take my season to feel sad. to grieve the relationship. But I mean, I didn't completely park there either. I also dug deeper into therapy and dug deeper into doing what I always do, which is working on myself, and started taking stock of where I'm at right now outside of the frame of who am I in a relationship? Who am I in this relationship? Because I mean, this is the first time I've actually been outside of a full-time committed relationship since the late 90s. This is a little bit of unfamiliar territory for me, which was kind of frightening, to be honest, at least coming into it. But now that I've had a little bit of chance to settle in, talk to some people, and, you know, hearing about where people are coming from, where they're hoping to head towards, I realize that I haven't lost the companionship full stop. I mean, yeah, the companionship with this one person, one could argue that I've lost that, but I mean, the flip side of it is, with all of the terrible behavior that was going on, it wasn't companionship so much as stress on me. It was like trying to grasp onto a hot coal. I mean, that thing just is determined to burn, no matter how much you want to say, hey, cool down, stop burning me. I like you. I want to hold on to you. There comes to a point where it's like, come on, idiot, what are you doing to yourself? You got to let go of this stuff. So I jotted down some quick things about what I think I'm taking away from just having this season of Tony, you know? And I realized that independence, I mean, that's really an overarching theme of where my life is at right now. I'm free to fully indulge in personal growth. And what I mean by that is not necessarily like somebody was telling me, no, you're not allowed to do that. What I'm saying is that when there are constant distractions, it's difficult to focus in a meaningful way on self. And it's difficult to maintain the energy levels that are required to work on self. And now without that distraction, without that drain on my energy, man, I feel like I'm doing the best work on me that I've done in years, which is awesome. I mean, the next thing I get from this newfound independence is freedom of choice. You know, I can make decisions based entirely on what I want, entirely on what's important to me, which is so unbelievably and surprisingly empowering. I didn't actually expect this to be the case. It's just a very, very pleasant surprise. And the last thing that came from the newfound independence, at least that I've identified so far, is self-reliance. I didn't realize how much I was leaning on not just my most recent partner, but every partner I've had before her. Always looking at things as a group effort rather than an individual challenge. When things go wrong, I mean, you got that little bit of wiggle room where you could say, well, it wasn't entirely on me, or if I'm not feeling completely up to the challenge, or maybe even if I'm just in all honesty feeling a little bit lazy, there's always that other person to defer to. But when the buck stops with me, like it starts and stops with me, I can either be overwhelmed by every situation, or I can learn to depend on myself. And having learned to depend on myself a lot more, I've developed so much more confidence, which is awesome because I'm handling all of life's challenges independently. And every time I overcome an obstacle, it's just hugely, hugely rewarding. And it's so cool because, I mean, the people I'm friends with, I mean, a lot of them are new friends too. They've seen this transformation. I mean, one person said, well, it's almost like you got that kind of like pleasant glow that a pregnant woman gets. And I feel the glow too. And it's all because of all this stuff, like growing, choosing, relying on myself. Like, what an awesome, awesome season of my life right now. You know, that being said, I mean, there are times when I have to acknowledge the reality of the loneliness. You know, for the most part, my days are pretty pleasant. I've got things that I keep busy with. I've got people that I reach out to. I've started socializing in different ways with different people. I started exercising with a buddy, which is cool. We have wonderful conversations, but there does come that time of the day, not every day. In fact, it seems like it's happening less and less, but probably still about half of the time. Those quiet moments when I go to bed when, it would be nice to put my arms around somebody and there isn't somebody there to put my arms around. That's a tough thing to let go of when you've had it for so many years. And while I don't invest too heavily in that lonely feeling, I don't focus too hard on my empty arms. I mean, I don't deny it either. I have to acknowledge that these feelings are there. I have to validate myself. It's okay to feel lonely sometimes. And the more I talk to other people, the more I realize like how common of an experience it is. Again, while this is getting a little bit better as time goes on, I mean, the loneliness has had an impact on my mental health. I mean, there's that anxiety that was creeping up. Am I going to be alone? Is this it? Was that my last chance? A little bit of depression. So, I mean, humans are social animals. I mean, we're meant to interact with other people. And when we get to a point where we're so used to framing that interaction in terms of our primary romantic relationship, losing that primary romantic relationship can really, really, really hit hard. But I'm realizing that a lot of these feelings that I had thought could only exist in that context can exist in other ways too. I mean, having friends that I can flirt with or who flirt with me, people who I can express attraction for, people who tell me that they find me attractive. I mean, that fills in a lot of blanks. And what I'm realizing is that, there's a balance that starts to emerge. You start cultivating new connections. I realize that not everything that we tend to associate with a romantic relationship is exclusive to a romantic relationship. At least like a fully invested, fully committed one. If I've got flirty interactions with somebody where, it's not likely that things are going to go anywhere. I mean, I can sort of get that part out of my system, or that playful back and forth, a little bit of physical touching, affection. Hugging friends is wonderful. A platonic cuddle that goes so far. And, it's not that sex isn't nice. And yeah, I mean, if I'm being realistic, sex isn't exactly a difficult thing to find. In fact, I don't know how or why people struggle when it's just a case of trying to get laid. But I mean, I'm realizing more and more that I'm not really interested in casual hookups. At the same time, I don't feel like I'm ready for a committed relationship. So again, I'm finding that balance. I mean, yeah, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, as people, we often have, what we identify as physical needs. I'm realizing more and more that these needs, more often than not, they're just desires, and the desire passes. I'm also finding balance in the idea that, quality over quantity is a thing. As I broaden my social circle and I cultivate deep, meaningful connections throughout this circle, I'm realizing more and more that, there's a lot of stuff that, or a lot of wants and needs to get satisfied by like sort of these casual acquaintances. But I also realize that having one or two super close friends have been making a really, really significant difference in my life. And, instead of worrying about having these one or two close friends plus a partner, the partner almost was diminishing the quality of my life, right? So by decreasing the quantity of people, decreasing the quantity of nonsense and hassles, decreasing the quantity of abuse, the quality by extension has just kept on going up and up and up. And I feel like I'm getting happier all the time. And, you know, when I first started seeing my new-ish therapist a couple of months ago, so one of the first questions he'd ask me is, when was the last time you felt happy? And when I really thought about it, I couldn't remember ever having felt happiness. In fact, I was pretty sure happiness was something that I wasn't capable of. But these last, I can't even say like couple of months, probably last month and a half, happiness just seems to be more and more part of my normal. And I'm not saying I'm like walking around with a smile plaster on my face like giddy all the time. But if you're going to ask me today, you know, when was the last time you felt happy? The last time I felt happy was yesterday. If you'd asked me the same question yesterday, I would have said the day before. And it just every day has got a little bit of happy in it, which is really, really good. Which, you know, kind of leads me to the next thing I jotted down was like something about self-compassion and self-care. I wasn't really clear with my notes, but I noticed that the more I feel kind of satisfied, happy with the way I'm living my life and with the people I've chosen to surround myself with. And I mean, let's be honest. And also the people I've chosen not to surround myself with. When I increase the number of kind and supportive voices and silence the ones that are just negative and terrible, when I eliminate the people who seem determined to just set my life on fire and burn it to the ground, I start looking at myself a little bit differently. Because, and it's not like my friends don't challenge me, because they absolutely do. They call me out the moment I express any kind of bullshit, which is great. That being said, I'm not expressing that much bullshit, so they're not having to call me out that much these days. And the feedback I get is so, I don't know, I guess loving, kind, compassionate, caring. They value me, they cherish me. And as a result, I'm seeing myself kind of through different eyes, because I start thinking, well, if everybody else is seeing me as something good, maybe I am something good. Maybe all this verbal abuse I was dealing with, physical abuse, and just every kind of abuse from my ex was informing my own inner dialogue. So even when she wasn't around actively treating me like crap, I was picking up the slack for her and abusing myself inside the privacy of my own head. And I'm not doing that anymore. I'm being so kind to myself, which feels good. And I've established self-care routines that are helping me when I'm feeling lonely. You know, I've gotten back into meditation and reading. I've been getting into different types of creative artistic projects, which is fun. I started exercising again. And while I'm on that point of exercise, actually, there's something I'm going to say it out loud, because then I figure if it's out there, then I've sort of locked myself into it. There's no backing out. What I'm going to do as soon as I'm done recording today is, like, I've gotten a little bit, I'm not going to lie, I've gotten a lot out of shape over the last year or so. And a lot of that has to do with me making excuses because of my poor health and whatnot. But I mean, the more I use my poor health as an excuse to not exercise, the more the lack of exercise is feeding into my poor health. It just turned into this vicious cycle. So I don't know why, but I got it in my head that sit-ups is where I wanted to go next. So when I stop recording today, I'm going to do as many sit-ups as I possibly can. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take half of that number, and that's going to be my starting point for tomorrow. I'm going to do that number of sit-ups, and then each day I'm going to add one sit-up to that number. And I don't know how far I'm going to take that, but I'm going to commit to adding one per day for at least the next 6 months, and then we'll take it from there. Maybe at some point, if I start feeling a little less self-conscious, I might start just taking short videos of these sessions, maybe even taking some photos to see how, if at all, my body changes. If nothing else, I'll describe how it's been affecting my overall feeling of well-being. And yeah. Okay. So now that we're back off of that side note, a big part of this journey also has been, as I mentioned before, talking to a therapist, seeking support, and not just professional help, which is super, super valuable, whether it is a therapist, a coach, a psychologist, whatever, all good stuff. Obviously, the self-help is good. Self-help isn't something that you necessarily do all by yourself. Sometimes it's guided self-help through the course of an online workshop or a book or something like that. But then also support groups. I started attending a men's group, which is really, really good, because while it's not therapeutic per se, there are definitely therapeutic benefits to be taken away from just getting together with other people that are dealing with similar stuff, who frame life in similar ways. And also with such a mix of ages in the group, it's really, really interesting to get all these differing perspectives, so I can get a decent idea of, what I've got to look forward to as I get older, but also maybe things I might want to avoid, different things I might want to put in place now, so that I don't have to deal with struggles as I continue to age. So that's been awesome. On the other end of the spectrum, moving away from the support group, I've been learning to find joy, find peace in solitude. And I'm not talking about sitting there being okay with being lonely. I'm talking about like figuring out things, activities, endeavors that are designed around me being just me. And whatever these activities are, for instance, like one of the silly things I did recently was I got a couple of Hot Wheels cars, and I did wheel swaps on them just because I thought, well, it would look cool with different wheels. I was really struggling because my eyesight isn't very good. My manual dexterity these days is kind of terrible. And as much as I fully expected that if I was going to hit a challenge like that, I'd end up feeling really, really frustrated, I realized that I wasn't feeling frustrated. I was actually celebrating the fact that I wasn't getting frustrated. I realized that, it's okay to put this down and come back to it later. I don't have to complete every project in one sitting. I've got a few things on the go right now that, normally I would have just made myself crazy trying to complete in a couple hours. And now I've thought, what? I'll take a couple weeks. I'll take a month. I'll take as long as I need to get it done, not just to my satisfaction, but also done in a way that makes it an enjoyable process. There's other opportunities to engage in reflection and personal growth and, mindfulness, if you want to call it that. Something as simple as just taking a walk in the park barefoot. Trying some basic yoga poses, which for me is a real challenge because I'm not like a super bendy person, but I've been trying it. And also taking the time to listen to music that I wouldn't normally listen to. I just feel like I'm finding so many different ways to enjoy my alone time. So, it all comes down to this balance. I've heard people talk in vague terms about it so much over the years, and I suppose I'm going to be one more of those people that's speaking somewhat in vague terms. I don't want to be too redundant. We're coming close to the end here anyways, but I think I've done a reasonable job of exploring the contrast between the loneliness and the togetherness, the solitude versus the socialization, the blah versus other blah. Sorry, it's times like this where I really wish I scripted this show, but at the same time, it wouldn't be super authentic if I did. But in any event, I mean, I'm finding balance that works for me. I'm defining that balance in ways that make sense to me. I suppose everybody's journey would be a little bit different. Everybody's balance would have a different recipe. But this is a little bit of mine. So, yeah, I mean, as we come to a close, I just want to encourage everybody. I mean, whether or not you're dealing with a breakup, I mean, one thing I've learned is that maybe I should have, even like all these years when I've been with other people, I should have maybe been taking a little bit more time to explore me. Maybe that would have brought a better version of me to the table. Maybe I would have had a little bit less resentment. Maybe I would have put a little less pressure on the people that were surrounding me, because I would have been a little bit more confident and independent, less reliant on another person to define my value even. And that last bit, it's so important, because I think if I'd been in a healthier place and more capable of defining my own value, maybe I wouldn't have been so susceptible to abuse. Maybe I wouldn't have been so tolerant of it. Maybe I would have thought, hey, I'm a valuable and wonderful person, and it's not okay to treat me like this. It is perfectly okay for me to walk away. Anyways, if you got thoughts on this or anything else I've talked about, either on this show or any other, feel free to reach out. Call me TonyPod@yahoo.com. Also, don't forget to check out the In the Blood podcast while we are on a summer break until the second Friday in August. There's plenty of good stuff in the back catalog. Also, if you've got suggestions on anything you'd like to hear me talk about, again, feel free to send me an email. And until next week, my friends, take care of yourselves and take care of each other.